All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Sunday, February 2nd. We have a 5-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to all of my final plays absolutely free. If that does interest you, it's down in the pinned comment. All right, before we do jump into today's video, we got to address the elephant in the room, right? Overnight, or I guess late last night, one of the bigger, weirder NBA trades that I've seen in a long time, maybe ever, right? The Mavs and the Lakers are involved in the trade, and I guess the Utah Jazz are involved as well. We don't really know exactly where everyone's going, but it seems like the focal point is Anthony Davis to the Mavs, Luka Doncic to the Lakers. Maxi Kleber's involved, Markieff Morris is involved, Max Christie's involved, and then a Lakers 2029 first-round pick as well. So this looks super weird to me, and honestly, it doesn't seem to make much sense for the Mavs to get rid of Luka, who's still very young, who's still an absolute beast. Yeah, I feel like he's been injured, so a lot of fans are like kind of forgetting how good he is, but Anthony Davis is up there in age. Luka Doncic is not. I don't know, a little weird to me, but I figured we would at least address that as we talk about the NBA today, because the Mavs are playing today, and though Luka's been kind of banged up and whatnot, I feel like that was worth talking about. Let me know what you think about that trade down in the comments, because again, that seems just like a weird, like a video game-esque trade. Like, I feel like when I was growing up playing NBA 2K, I would make these superstar for superstar trades all the time, but you don't see it very often. I mean, you've seen it before, you don't see it very often. But anyways, guys, let's go ahead and jump into a recap of last night, because as weird as that Mavs trade was, we had a weird night as well. 1-4 night. I mean, really, realistically, a 1-3 night, because that Halliburton play was two different plays split in, or one play split into two different ones. That's one we were lost in the hook with the P&A, right? The Heat team total looked like they were cruising, so I feel like it was a decent read. The only one that I just feel like I want to get out ahead of it and drop the womp womp on myself, Ben Simmons. What was I thinking? Even watching back the video, I chuckle at the thought of making it a final play, and you know what I said? I think it could be a good spot. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a good spot, so not exactly the best move there. Lakers and Knicks team total was my favorite play on the board, so luckily we have that little piece of momentum, you know what I mean? Like, the thing that I liked the most, Halliburton was right up there too, I guess, but that was a close one. The thing I liked the most actually crushed, so I guess we could pull that momentum into today. But nonetheless, a weird day. We only have 5 games on today to try and make that back, so obviously we'll be a little conservative, and we don't need to chase losses there. Speaking of chasing, we don't need to do it here, because Colin Sexton comes through for my man here. Colin, who's on the ride of the day streak now. Colin Sexton cashes. I'm going to say Colin a million times, because your name's Colin, and Colin Sexton was the ride of the day. But anyways, he cashes his PRA, had a good game yesterday. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it's simple. Just use that hashtag ride of the day in the comments. Give me your favorite play. I jump on board with one person's play each and every day. Give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. If you win, we continue to ride with your plays. Now we got a couple wins in a row here for Colin, so looking forward to seeing what you drop in the comments down there. So get those hashtag ride of the days or ROTDs in the comments. But all right, a lot of rambling here. We're talking about some NBA news and whatnot. Let's get to the slate. We're starting off with Detroit taking on Chicago. We can definitely make the argument that there's angles for both teams in this spot. Neither one of them are really cruising in terms of how they've been playing. Detroit 5-5 last 10 here. Chicago 3-7, but both teams are coming off of a win. Detroit against Dallas a couple nights back, and then Chicago a couple nights back against Toronto, right? Both were, I believe, no, actually, Detroit was at home. But like I said, we can make an angle for both teams here realistically. Detroit likes to score in the paint. This is a Chicago team that is literally one of, if not the worst team, depending on the sample size you pull, worst teams in the league at preventing points in the paint. But Chicago obviously lives and dies by the 3-ball, and this Detroit perimeter defense has not been all that phenomenal. Now, it's not necessarily a level of them allowing great field goal percentages, so their efficiency on there, but the frequency that's there and just the fact that they play at a fast pace, teams are dropping some buckets from deep. So if you believe in Chicago's shooting, which I think I'm going to lean towards Detroit in this one, but if you do believe in Chicago's shooting, that's probably a look for you. I would just say without Zach LaVine, I do think he's a massive piece, and even though he, is questionable or doubtful, like we already said, he's missing some personal, his name's been thrown around in trade rumors, I think that he's such a cog in this team that we can't forget about. And even if he does play, it's like it doesn't seem like he's as interested as he once was, which, yes, now I'm trying to read between the lines. It's not always the best thing to do. But to me, Detroit is still fairly sound, and it's easier to make a 2-point bucket than a 3-point bucket, okay? So I think Detroit can control this one, especially that they got back in the win column at home there against Dallas. So 5.5 points, certainly a lot. I don't know if I have the cojones to get there myself, because it does seem like a lot. I have this actually in our projection as a 3-point win for Detroit. So technically by my numbers, Chicago should cover the 5.5, but again, it's close enough for me. So I'm going to lean towards Detroit here. I think that they kind of dominate inside, and that helps them control the pace and the play of the game. Now, I mentioned pace earlier, and I just actually said the word too. You have two fast-paced teams. Chicago last 10 games, 5th fastest. Detroit number 10, but if I think Chicago is going to really try and shoot the 3 ball, and sure, maybe they're on and this one goes south and kind of puts the under to kaput, but I am still on the under, because if Detroit's going to slow things down, try and score in the paint, and have ease at scoring in the paint, they'll probably have some longer possessions and whatnot as well. At least I would hope. So give me them and the under. In terms of where I'd go from a player prop, probably a Jalen Duren look here. 4 straight games of double-doubles against this Chicago team. Don't mind that spot. I also don't mind his points over where we can get it at right now. I think 11.5 is what I most recently saw. I don't mind that either. 4 straight games against Chicago of him having 23, 14, 20, and 15. One of those games was the 15. That was back in mid-November, the only game this season, but still, last 4 against Chicago. The dude's only getting better, averaging 18 points against them per game. All right, next up is Cleveland taking on Dallas. I'll be completely honest, I don't think I want to touch this game. With that trade, like, weird things can happen, right? And sure, you might be like, oh, well, they're going to be, this Dallas team could be, dragging their feet and all that because it's so weird. But at the same time, what if they rally around a trade? Like, you'd never know on the Dallas side of things. And then you throw in the fact that Cleveland still has to cover 13 points, which even without any drama in the NBA, I'd be kind of like, that's a big number. Throw in the fact now that you also have Kyrie questionable, PJ Washington questionable, Daniel Gafford questionable, Max Christie game time decision. We'll throw that one in there. I don't think that I'm going to be touching this one, and I would honestly, say maybe you guys think twice before doing it as well. Let's see how things play out and how the dust settles before jumping on board. If I had to, I do think that that's too many points. It's a decent Dallas team around the perimeter. Do I think the Cavs win this game? Yeah, I would say so, but overall, 13 points for a team that does have, a decent piece down low, decent pieces defensively down low, I guess, in Dallas, even though they're not all that tremendous defensively down there, but they can certainly play some defense on the perimeter, and they have been playing defense on the perimeter, which is where the Cavs are starting to shoot a lot more of their points from. Beginning of the year, well, this is a Cavs team that could score from anywhere, let's be honest, but beginning of the year, that seemed to be like more of an emphasis on getting to the hoop. Now with Garland actually in full swing, and obviously Mitchell doing Mitchell things, even Evan Mobley we're seeing shooting some more shots from deep, and them getting healthy with their bench pieces, right? It's a Cavs team that's definitely relying on the perimeter a little bit more. That's where the Cavs have been good defensively, not even recently, but like all year long. So just throwing that out there, that 13 points does seem like it's a little bit too much, but with all those questionabilities, with the trade just happening, like I feel like there's other spots on the board that we can get to today in general, you know what I mean? In terms of a total, I would say a potential look at maybe a Cleveland team total over. That's something that I could rationalize, even with the decent defense there and whatnot. Like this Cleveland team, obviously, like I mentioned, a really good offense, especially when healthy. You can get them at 120.5 maybe. I think it's probably going to be more like 122, but that's something I consider. But like I said, guys, I hate to blow through it and maybe not give my best of takes on this game, but I don't really have one. I'm not going to fake it for the content. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. Actually, before we do move on, let me talk to you guys about Sleeper Picks and their free square for Dame time. tonight, 0.5 points, but they also still have, and again, I say still because I don't know how long they're going to leave this lunatic offer up, because this is such one to take advantage of. The play 5, get $55 back is still live in Sleeper right now for new customers, so you get this Lillard square, you get the play 5 55, and it's Sunday. I'm sure they'll be dropping some Sleeper Sundays, which are discounted squares on the app as well. No better time. Go check it out, guys. I mean that. If you're not on Sleeper and it's available in your state, you are missing out and you will regret it. Check it out, guys. That link will be down in the description as well as the pinned comment, or you can just download the Sleeper Picks app, sign up with code GUYBOSTON. You'll get all of the same perks. Go ahead and try it out. You will not regret it. Now let's jump back into the last few games here. All right, next up, Toronto taking on the Clips. Now, Toronto is coming off of a loss, but we have to acknowledge, I've been reluctant to do, they're winning basketball, recently, right? Like, they played some really good basketball there, and they're playing some really good defense. Now, Chicago came into town and hung 122 on them. The Clippers are also playing very good basketball. They're 7-3, both straight up and against the number in their last 10. But the one thing I want to look at here, and we can use our dashboard, which if you guys don't know how to get access to this, GuyBostonSports.com, I'll show you in just a second. We have a lot more coming as well, which is really cool for members over there. But one thing I want to look at here is, okay, well, let's look at where the teams are shooting in the last 10 games, right? Which clearly there's an emphasis for both squads on shooting at the rim and in the paint. We come down to look at the defenses. Well, both of them looking fairly good. Like Toronto, 58.9% field goal percentage at the rim, pretty damn good. The Clippers, 64, decent as well. But we head over to the season-long numbers, and this just points in the paint allowed in general. Yes, Toronto has been better as of late, but this is still just such a consistent team down low for the Clippers, right? And even if Toronto does want to shoot the 3-ball, which they don't really elect to, right? 30th, so dead last 10 games in terms of above the break 3, but they, I guess, have been a little bit better, 24th compared to 29th and 30th on the year. This is a Clippers team that should be able to hold it up. So I think defensively, this Clippers team comes to play. They are at home. They are on the road, which worries me because it's the Toronto team that at home is much better than on the road. But overall, I think Clippers are a far better team now. You can make one case for the Clippers offense potentially lacking today, and it's that one of their best players offensively this season, Norm Powell, is going to miss this one, right? I'm hoping that's not going to be as much of a blow as some may think, because James Harden loves to isolate and he's able to hit the 3-ball, right? Those are two things that Toronto is very bad defensively against. Isolation as well as defending the perimeter, like we looked at. So James Harden, I think, should pick up some slack from Norm Powell being out here, so I'm hoping that's the case this season. It doesn't look all that tremendous without Norm Powell. He's only been averaging 22.3 points, but that's with a 43-point game in there. He's only hit the over in 2 of his, I believe it's 7 games. So that's a little worrisome to me, but a couple of those were without Kawhi, right? And James Harden, without Norm Powell and with Kawhi, we haven't seen yet. So I'm hoping both of these guys can kind of elevate their offensive games and make up for that miss, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm putting a lot of eggs in James Harden's basket right now, because I do like his player props for his points and as well as his threes, but I think that he's going to pick up a lot of the scoring load, too, with Norm out. So, give me the Clippers here, minus the 5. The best number I can see right now is 5, so if you are on the Clippers, maybe this is one where you want to race to it. I still have to solidify my thoughts on this one, because I am leaning Clippers. I just want to make sure I have all my ducks in a row before locking it in, and all my eggs in the correct basket. Shout out to James Harden. But, if you like the Raptors, maybe you wait a little bit, because I think you'll see a 5.5, maybe even a 6 soon if a lot of people come in on this, because I think I'm seeing a lot of the public on the Clippers. So, yeah, just my 2 cents there. Give me the Clippers. I think they dominate down low and have the guy to be able to kind of control the perimeter as well. I didn't even mention injuries on the Toronto side of things. Mitchell, game time decision, and then Shed is also a game time decision as well. But I don't think either of those are that crazy. Quickly's back. Their starting lineup should be fairly healthy. In terms of where we're seeing a total right now, so in terms of what we have this game projected at in our model here, it looks like it should be a fairly decent scoring game, but the total's at 220, and we have this as a 112 to 110 win for Toronto. So slightly going over, but I kind of am focusing on the Clippers being defensive, right? So I'm almost thinking fade the model and lean towards the under. 220 is super low, though, so I think this would be a spot in which I say maybe a Clippers team total over or a Raptors team total under. Maybe Raptors team total under being the ultimate move there, because that's what I'm seeing clearly from our dashboard at least. All right, I mentioned how to get access to that dashboard over on our website, which is the same website in the pinned comment here. In the members area, head over to NBA Dashboard, which as this loads, I'm already logged in, so I see it right away, but this is the dashboard. You get each and every game broken out in a visual format to save you tons of time researching all of the key metrics from obviously where teams shoot from and how well they shoot from to player projections in the starting lineup stat-wise, defense versus position, catch and shoot, pull-up, isolation, pick and roll, trends against the number, over and under, that type of thing. So yeah, guys, go ahead and check it out again. It's on GuyBostonSports.com over in the members area. If you're not logged in, you'll see this when you head over there, and it'll just say, hey, go ahead and sign up, view the membership levels. And I will say there's tons more coming with the members area here on the site. We have a ton of other things built out. I've hinted at a couple of those, but that's not even the coolest one. I'm saving the coolest one for when it's actually ready to go. So yeah, go ahead and check it out, guys. That is the dashboard. All right, Sixers taking on the Celts. Now, I am trying to not be like, thinking that this is going to be a big game, and because it is, it's got that rivalry to it because I'm a Celtics fan, right? So I am trying to take that out of it because obviously the Sixers team isn't exactly the Sixers team of years past. But at the same time, they've been playing some decent basketball. They took Denver down to the wire. Prior to that, they had won 4 straight games. They had beat Cleveland outright. Now, was it the best situation for Cleveland? No, obviously, but nonetheless, it was still on a first leg of a back-to-back for Philly, so I'll give them a little bit of credit there. We look at their injury report, no Paul George, no Embiid, no KJ Martin, the other Martin, right? We should potentially see Caleb Martin. Andre Drummond's listed as questionable, so they should be getting a couple guys back. Nobody listed on the injury report for the Celtics right now, so in my mind, this should be a spot in which the Celtics can win by 11 points. That is a big number, so I almost don't want to lay the 11. I almost would consider a Celtics team total over if we can get a good number here, because I do think the Celtics can score. They've been shooting a lot better down low, and that's how you're going to beat the Sixers team lately. Like we just saw the Nuggets, who love to score down low, score 137 on them, right? And you can get the Celtics right now for over 115.5. They've hit that in 5 of their last 7 games, 6 of their last 9, so I really don't mind that spot for them. In terms of playing against the Sixers, in the last 5 meetings dating back to last season, they're averaging 115.2. On the road, they're averaging 110. So it does go down a little bit, but nonetheless, I still do like the spot. I mentioned, obviously, being able to score down low on them. Again, the Celtics not exactly shooting a lot from down low, but more as of late. And this is a Sixers team, last 3 games. And meanwhile, they've been playing some decent basketball. The 5th most points allowed in the paint. From deep, that does have a little bit of concern in my brain because this is a team in which they've actually defended the perimeter fairly well this season. Obviously, if we know one thing about the Celtics, it is that they're going to jack. But they've also proven time and time again, I should say, that they can still beat teams that are good defensively on the perimeter. The Bulls have a similar perimeter defense and play the perimeter similar to the Sixers, and the Celtics just kick their you-know-what's in, you know what I mean? So Celtics have enough shooters that I don't always want to read too much into it, but it is the case. That is where the Sixers' defensive strength is. The Sixers also shooting a lot of threes as of late. Last 10 games above the break 3 field goal frequency rate, so not necessarily make or miss, but how many times are they shooting it? 6th most in the league. The Celtics, a very good perimeter defense. And in that same stretch, 10 games, right? The Celtics allowing under 30%, 29.7% to their opponents, field goal percentage-wise, in terms of above the break. So I do think the Celtics could throw a wrench into any sort of plan the Sixers have and that type of thing. And I like them to win. But again, 11 points against what you'd consider a rival. Like even without Embiid and that type, and Paul George, it's like the Sixers, Tyrese Maxey and company probably still get up for this type of a game, right? It's against the Celtics in Philly. You know the crowd's going to be electric. So I'm hesitant to roll with the number there, but I don't mind the idea of the Celtics coming out fired up as well and scoring a lot of points. So again, Celtics team total over 115.5. You can get a better number, sure, but maybe even a Celtics team total over, lower that thing down and get Celtics on the money line and pair those together as an SGP could be a look as well. When I come to the player props here, I am going to want to look at who's scoring in the paint for the Celtics. Obviously, you can think Jaylen Brown right away because he's going to be the guy that is not necessarily... Everyone else on the team seems to elect for the 3 first, right? So Jaylen Brown is definitely a look for me in this one, but also Kristaps. Kristaps has been playing some good basketball. He's obviously been shooting the ball a lot too, but first off, let's take a peek at Jaylen Brown. In fact, let's just pull up the outlier screen as we kind of dive through this. So Jaylen Brown, right? I think he's going to get off to a hot start like he normally does. So Over 4.5 points could be a really good, in the first quarter, could be a good look for him as well. Last 3 games, I mean, he didn't have any in this one. That was on Christmas. Weird game for the Celtics, but, looked good there. But let's just look at his points overall, because we're sitting at 21.5. 2 straight games he's hit against the Sixers. On the season, 62% of these games, right? On the road, 53%, which isn't all that terrible. This should be a fairly close-ish game. I mean, I'm not thinking that they're going to blow them out. So let's go ahead and say on the season, when he plays 31 minutes plus, 68%, averaging 24.65. Again, this Philly team, middle of the pack when it comes to defending players, but using our dashboard, you could see here, they're not all that great at defending the rim, right? And especially in the restricted area. Look at this. Last 10 games, 74.1% at the rim, 52.5% in the paint outside of the restricted area. So Jaylen Brown should be a strong candidate for this one. 21.5, I don't mind that. Let's see Kristaps now, because Kristaps, again, not always going to live in the paint, but the dude's been playing some good basketball. His three-point line is up, so I don't like that, but 18.5. What did he do last time against the Sixers? Only 9 points, but prior to that, he had looked fairly good against them, and I think it's going to come down to minutes for him too. 28 minutes, but these last few games, he's been playing a little bit more. If we get the minutes out of Kristaps, look at that hit rate this season, right? So it would come down to minutes for him. I do think, we're going to look at this and be like, oh, they're good defensively. I think Yabusele is actually a better matchup for Kristaps than Drummond. If Kristaps can kind of run around Drummond, we could see some success there. I don't like the rebounds because of Drummond, but, I think Kristaps could have a decent game here. But I'd still probably prioritize, maybe team total and Jaylen Brown, then we get to Kristaps, and then we get to potentially Celtics minus the points. But that's what I'm thinking in this game. And again, I'm trying to take all bias out of it, because usually Celtics Sixers, I'm fired up through the roof, but it's not like an Embiid game. It's not even, it's like Tyrese Maxey, who I actually like, versus Celtics. All right, next up, Milwaukee, gotta speak. Milwaukee taking on Memphis. I think this is probably the best game of the night, right? Like, I don't know if that's really in question. Milwaukee here coming off of that weird one against the Spurs. I mean, they got stomped, but there was that Giannis and Chris Paul beef, which if you haven't seen that on Twitter, go look it up, because Giannis was genuinely pissed up. He kept saying, I'll F you up, I'll F you up, I'll F you up, because, and just a little rant here, like, Chris Paul's regarded as like one of these, faces of the league and this team guy and a veteran, great passer. What people don't know, and this is not necessarily me giving my stance on Chris Paul as a player, Chris Paul's literally, since he's been in the league, and definitely as of late, one of the dirtiest players in the league. Like, he's always going to throw the elbow to the midsection, or, he's punched guys in the balls before. We've seen him trip guys. So, like, love or hate Chris Paul, that is part of his game, which, again, I'm not really giving a stance like, oh, there's no room for that in this league and blah, blah, blah. But Giannis was genuinely mad, to the point where he stood on the court after the game, because he said, I'll see you after the game, and Chris Paul's like, I'll be there, and Giannis like, I'll be here too. He stood out there and he says, I'm here. What are you going to do? Giannis Chris Paul fight would be entertainment. Like, how does that even work? Chris Paul's like punching his stomach and Giannis is swinging and missing him above. That's just doesn't make sense to me. But nonetheless, you got to fire it up Giannis. That is ultimately what I'm trying to get at here. So I do think that the Bucks coming off that loss, Giannis knowing this has hit the social media, now we have the Bucks at home, which they are drastically better at home, against Memphis, who's drastically worse on the road. I do think it sets up for a Milwaukee spot. Now, we have -4 in the graphic here. We took this and imported it like a couple hours ago, right? This line is down to 2.5, so I'm wondering if there's been some injury rulings and whatnot. We have a ton of guys that we have to note here. Lillard is on the injury report. All these guys are probable, though, but Lillard, Prince, Giannis, and Brook Lopez, all starters, all on the injury report. Chris Middleton as well. We are, Gary Trent Jr. as well. I think I already mentioned Prince, right? No Bobby Portis. So there's a ton of guys injured. And after we saw that big trade with Giannis, with the Lakers and the Mavs with Davis and obviously Luka, sometimes all you need is one big trade to go, and then a bunch happens, right? So when you see a bunch of guys in the injury report, I'm not saying this is necessarily the case with the Bucks, but when you see a ton of guys on the injury report, sometimes it's like where there's smoke, there's fire, and there could be moves happening. Just for your general NBA knowledge. I'm not saying this specifically here, but this line is clearly moving around a decent amount, right? So that's a little worrisome to me, because I liked the Bucks at 4. Obviously, I'm going to sit here and be like, well, I love them at 2.5. But now it's like, are we falling right into a trap? This Memphis team's playing very, very good. In their last 6 games here, right? They're 5-1. They're only 3-3 against the number, but they're 5-1 in their last 6. Those 5 games came at home. The one was a loss to New York, in which they got smacked 143-106 on the road in New York. Make no mistake, this Memphis team is very good, but they struggle when they are on the road. when they're underdogs, they do all right, so I'll give them that credit there. But I think you have a fired-up Giannis. You have a game in which we could see some transition basketball, which is obviously going to suit Giannis and company as well. And you still have Ja Morant listed as questionable. Now, he didn't play last game. He's listed in the starting lineup here with an estimated return of tonight, but still listed as questionable. So maybe that's the line move from 4 to 2.5. Like, you got news that, obviously they're seeing that Ja may play. I could understand that, but even if Ja plays, I still do like Milwaukee. We look at these two teams, both of them pretty good defenses down low. Milwaukee a little bit better than Memphis, and Memphis loves scoring down low. The one thing I'll give credit to both teams for is they should be able to score from the three-point line today. But I think I'm trusting Damian Lillard from the three-point line with, even Brook Lopez, the center and whatnot, over what we're going to get out of a potential, starting lineup of the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, unless we're going to see Luke Kennard go off again type of thing, like it's going to be Desmond Bane and who from deep. You know what I mean? Santi Aldama, like, sure. But again, we're talking Damian Lillard and that crew versus the skeleton crew from 3 of Memphis. Probably sounds like I'm hating on Memphis. I think this is going to be a very good game, but Milwaukee, I think that they're in the right. This is a very good situation for Milwaukee, I guess, when Memphis is kind of due for a loss. They've been playing such good basketball, and they do struggle on the road in a win-loss perspective. All right, in terms of what we have from a total now, this is way up there. There's nothing to say that these two teams can't go out there and score a lot of points, right? But I'd peg this more or less in like the 239 area, so it's close, a couple buckets off. But if what I'm thinking about how Milwaukee can stop Memphis's #1 scoring option, and Memphis's best defensive trait is to potentially stop those points in the paint as well, I think there's got to be at least some messy possessions in there. And with a 243 total, and I've seen this higher as well, right? So it's weird that the spread goes down, but this is jumped up to like 244. I do see, you got to play a pretty damn good offensive game, and I think there could be some lulls in this game because of defense. So I will look at the under, and it's got a decent chance of being a final play. Now, I know we get in the comments too when I lean towards unders, and it's kind of crazy because in a game in which we have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, we're potentially leaning towards the under. All those guys can score like 1,000,000 points themselves. I get it, but there's only one ball. I'm going to go old man in the clouds for you. There's only one ball, only one guy can score, and I do think the defense could look fairly good. Player prop wise, we haven't talked about that much. I like Desmond Bane today, whether it's his points or points plus assists, as well as a look at Giannis. If Desmond Bane, if Ja Morant doesn't play, I probably end up leaning towards Bane's points plus assists. If Ja Morant does play, I might look at his points. And then Giannis, I don't think you can go wrong here. Giannis is obviously going to be a guy that can carry you in transition, which is how you can get this Memphis team offensively, right? And he's averaging in his last 4 games here, 36, 35, 39, and 35. So he's averaging, what is that, in his last 4, maybe 37, 36.5 points per game. So that's pretty good. Head-to-head against this team, he had 37 last time they played. That was earlier this year. And I always look at, okay, well, they're going to try and score in the paint. Zach Edey has been known to foul, right? Giannis probably gets the line a decent amount here as well. So that's what I'm leaning in this game. I feel like I was all over the place there, but hopefully that made some sense to you guys. If you guys made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment 27 down below. You made it past the 27-minute mark, and I do truly, truly appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys in the next one, right? Peace out.